Hey everybody, this is Dan. It's been a while since I've shared a video. It's been a couple months since I posted any kind of YouTube video on my channel, so I'm very excited to be back sharing another video with everybody. And the video that I'd like to share today is a chess puzzle that is taken from one of my blitz games. And the puzzle that you see in this position is black to move. And before I say anything else, feel free to pause the video, take a look at this position from black's point of view, and see if you can figure out what the strongest move is for black in this position. So how should black continue here? So take a look and feel free to pause and press play when you're ready. Okay, so what you see when you glance at this position, what you see is that the bishop on d6 and the queen on c7 are lining up on the b8, h2 diagonal, and they're pointing directly at the h2 square, which is right next to white's king. So you see that those two pieces are forming a battery on that diagonal, aiming at the king. And you also see that the knight on g4 is also close to the king and also attacking that h2 square. So really what you have is these three pieces, the queen on c7, the bishop on d6, and the knight on g4 converging on h2. And anytime that you have a strong attacking formation like this, what you want to do is look at the position and say, okay, do I have any checks? I usually tell my students, do you have any checks and do you have any captures? And if so, consider whether or not they're good for you, good for your opponent, or even, right? So in this position you can look first and say, okay, do I have any checks against white's king? And the answer to that is yes, and there's actually only one check in this position. And it turns out to be a very strong check that wins through a checkmate in just 2 moves. So the check is the following check: bishop to h2. And this move leaves white with only 2 possible moves in response. When you have a check, of course, you have 3 ways to get out of check. One is to capture the piece. In this case, the king can't capture the bishop because the queen protects it. The knight, however, can capture the bishop. So one move for white is to use the knight to capture the bishop. The second way to get out of check is to just move your king, and the king in this case can move over to h1, thereby getting out of the check by the bishop. The third way is to block the check, but in this case it's impossible for white to do that. So that leaves white with 2 possible responses to bishop to h2 check, one of which is king to h1, and one of which is knight takes bishop on h2. And when you look at both of these moves, you'll see that in both cases, black is able to win. So let's see what happens if knight takes bishop. So if knight takes bishop, you'll notice, okay, the bishop is gone, but black still has the queen on c7 and the knight on g4, both converging on that h2 square. So in this particular position, you'll see that since the knight left f3 to capture on h2, that leaves only the king guarding that h2 square. So what black plays here is just queen to h2 checkmate, since the king can't capture the queen because the queen is protected by the knight on g4. So if bishop to h2 check, knight takes bishop, queen takes, knight is checkmate. Okay, also, if bishop to h2 check, king to h1, black can also win here in just 1 move, but the move is different. So if you are looking at this position, see if you can spot the checkmate in 1 before I give you the solution. See, you can take a minute to see if you can spot what it is. And in this position, it turns out to be knight takes pawn on f2, and that's checkmate because the king is in check by the knight. The bishop prevents the king from going to g1, and the queen prevents the king from capturing the bishop on h2. So therefore white is in checkmate and black wins. So both of these lines lead to a forced checkmate in 2 for black. And I think the lesson to be gained here is not only to direct your pieces so that they work together in attacking the enemy king, but also when you have some kind of forcing check or forcing move, could be a capture, it pays to take the time to look at it and calculate the possible variations. What would happen if that check were made or if that capture were made, and would that be beneficial to you or would that hurt your position? But always look at checks and captures and consider whether or not they help you, hurt you, or whether or not they're just even. And I know in blitz, since this game was in blitz, my opponent had just played this pawn move to h3, overlooking the mate in 2, but in blitz those kind of things are common. So the quicker you're able to realize that there's a combination, a tactical possibility there, the more often you practice this kind of thing, the easier it is to see it. And yeah, so anyway, hope this video was entertaining and or useful to you, and look forward to sharing more videos really soon. It's been a couple months, so I'm really happy to be back, and I really appreciate everybody who watches. Would really appreciate if you'd subscribe or comment or like this video or any others. So anyway, thanks a lot, and I'll make another video and share it with you guys sometime soon. Thank you very much.